Welcome back. It is so good to see you. Shout out to the YouTube and the Spotify audience. Today, I had something on my mind. I wanted to talk about what it looks like to be present in your relationships. I've asked some people, what have you been doing lately? Like, what's going on in your life? And the response to me is, I've just been trying to be more present. And it sounds like a really cool answer. And I've answered that question that way too. But I wanted to dive into what that actually means. What does it mean to be present in our relationships? So let's get into it. I think that from my understanding, being present is not only physically being in a place, but also mentally being in a place. I know for me, there has been so many times where I'm physically in a place and someone's speaking to me and now they're talking, and then my mind starts thinking about 1,000 other things. And then I tune back into what they're saying and I realize I've just missed out on the last 2 minutes of what this person is saying. And I have no idea what they're talking about. And sometimes I'll just be like, yeah, okay, cool, awesome. And give a response based on their body language, but I'm not actually being present and I'm not actually listening to what this person has to say in front of me. And two, I also found myself hanging out with people as more of a checklist thing to seem like I'm being a good friend by, giving them my time, but not necessarily as a genuine point of connection. I think it's really awesome when you have that friend or that person who you can hang out with and you don't really have to talk. You can just kind of watch something or just be doing your own thing, but be in the same room and you feel connected. But I don't think that that should be the extent of the relationship. That shouldn't be the standard for the relationship. I think the relationships that we want to go deeper in, they all come from both parties being present and pursuing connection together. I think there's time for both. But what I'm really wanting to get into is the fact that we have a little bit of familiarity in our relationships. And so we tend to take them for granted and we don't actually pursue connection all the time. Like I said, I think that there is room for both. I think both is good, both is healthy. But when one starts to outweigh the other, being that you're just kind of existing in the same space, I think that it can lead to disconnection. And that's what I was feeling. I was feeling disconnected from people. Yeah, I was hanging out with people all the time, 5 days a week hanging out with people because I'm trying to break out of that place of isolating myself. But I wasn't actually connecting with the people I was hanging out with. I was doing it as a checklist. This is what I'm supposed to do to not isolate myself. But I wasn't listening to the person who was talking. I wasn't taking advantage of the moments and the memories that we were creating. I was always thinking about the next thing I had to do. And I started to treat my friendships and my hangouts like an obstacle that was holding me back from what I needed to do next. And I was feeling disconnected and not understanding why. Because on paper, I'm hanging out with people all the time. I should feel so connected. But in those hangouts, there was no intention behind it. It was just a checklist for me at that point. And that wasn't a healthy way to live. And I was devaluing the people that I was spending time with. So rather than recognizing that there was an issue and an opportunity for growth in myself, I would just make excuses. I would be like, well, I have a lot of responsibilities. I have so many people relying on me. I have to do this. I have to do that. If there was an excuse that you can come up with in your mind, I probably used it for not addressing me not being present in the relationships that I had. And at the end of the day, what I had to face was a hard truth that I was being a bad friend. None of us want to be bad friends. We don't seek that out, but we allow comfortability and familiarity to creep in, and we tend to take things and people for granted. And that's exactly what I was doing. I couldn't look at it as, I have all these excuses and these are my reasons why. I had to bring it to more of a black and white situation for myself. I am devaluing people by not being present. Therefore, I am not being the best friend. I'm not giving my best in those situations. And I think that no one is expecting us to give perfection and for it to be a 10 out of 10 hangout every single time you hang out and really going after connection and all these different things. That's not the other end of the pendulum that we're swinging towards, but giving your best. And if I was honest, I wasn't giving my best in my hangouts and in my relationships. Because again, my mind was so far somewhere else. And the thing is, the people that I was spending time with, time is the only thing that we don't get back. And they were choosing to spend it with me. And rather than valuing them and being in the moment with them and creating amazing memories with them, my mind was somewhere else. And what I was communicating to them, knowingly or unknowingly, is that I have no value for you and I have no value for your time. That was just the harsh reality that I had to come to. I think that for me, at least, I like to concoct more of a candy painted narrative that, this is that, this is the reason why that's happening. But I just needed to take responsibility. I just needed to look in the mirror and I just needed to be honest. And when I was honest, that was the conclusion that I had come to. And I didn't want to be this way anymore because I don't want anyone to treat me that way. When I'm speaking and someone asks me a question, I don't want to feel like they don't care about what the response is, asking me because they're supposed to ask me. That's something that frustrated me so much, is if someone asks me a question and then I start to respond and give a thoughtful answer, then they're just like, yeah, okay, cool, and then move on to something else. There's no follow-up questions. There's nothing more. But that's exactly what I was doing to other people. And so I had to come to that conclusion in order to recognize there was an opportunity for growth for me in being present. So upon recognizing this, I came to a crossroads and I made the decision to pursue growth in this area. So what that looked like for me is after hanging out with anybody, I would take a few moments and have a debriefing of sorts. How present was I in this hangout? When were the moments when my mind was drifting? And how can I be better the next time for this person? Because I love this person and I want to communicate that. But what I had been communicating was quite the opposite. And in doing this, I began to recognize patterns in myself and my thought process. And by doing that, I was able to diagnose where the growth was needed and where my attention was needed more. So by having that information, I was able to begin a process of retraining my brain to be present. And in that process, I had to be nice to myself. Please be nice to yourself when you are learning anything. You are not a robot. You're not just getting an upgrade to your system and automatically being able to operate from that place. It is a process, and we are nuanced people. For some people, recognizing, oh my gosh, I'm not being present, quick fix, done. They've fixed it. Other people, it could be so much harder. Wherever you land on the scale doesn't make you less than or better than anybody else. It's your process. This is your choice whether or not you want to communicate value to the people around you or just continue in the way that it's been for so long. The fact that you are recognizing that there's an opportunity for growth and pairing that with action is so commendable and so good. And that's what I had to do. I couldn't just recognize, oh my gosh, I'm being a bad friend right now. I had to be like, I'm being a bad friend. How can I change this? And what am I going to do about it? And then starting to take steps towards that. Because it's one thing to recognize something, but it's another thing to go after it. And I think that it's really important if we're looking to grow as people and to be the best version of ourselves, to go after things, not just recognize that there are things that we need to grow in. So for a while, doing my debriefings, it was working, and I was doing really good, I felt. And I was communicating that to the people around me like, hey, if you feel like I'm not being present, let me know, because this is something that I want to do better. And it was working. It was doing good. And then I began to recognize that my brain was drifting again. And I was like, okay, let's go back a couple steps and figure out what's going on. So I began to realize that I needed to do some practical things as well, beyond just asking myself questions and trying to grow from there. A really big help for me was writing stuff down. My mind is constantly running through ideas throughout the day. I always have ideas flowing. But just because I have a thought doesn't mean that I have to pursue the thought till its end in that moment. If it's not a relevant thought to the conversation that I'm in with someone else who I value, then what I can do is I can pause and I can write it down and come back and pursue that thought later. before, if a thought popped in my mind, I was gone. And that wasn't fair to the people around me at all. And so by doing this, it's helped me so much in my process in recognizing that just because I have a thought does not mean that I have to pursue that thought to its end. I think that living in a world of convenience and instant gratification, it's really easy for our brains to go that way because everything is now. And if at least Western culture, it is really competitive. And so if you're not go, you're behind. And that's just not true. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be in this moment. Everything that's happened in your life has led to this moment. And if you're at a crossroads where you're like, okay, I do want to grow, all of that experience that you have is going to help inform the growth for you. And that's really cool to recognize. I think because of the way that society functions, our brains slip into that instant gratification, that now. It's not always a beneficial thought process when it comes to relationships. Some relationships are harder than others. Some relationships require different kind of attention. And that's okay. Like I said last week, people aren't formulas. Because this worked in this other friendship, it's not going to always work in this friendship. And if I'm not present and valuing the person in front of me, I'm not going to be able to recognize that. I could think, oh, I hung out with someone, checklist done, but they're feeling so disconnected from me because I'm not giving my best. So I think that it's important to recognize these things and recognize that we're not just coming up against our own thought process, but society as a whole with the now, and just selfishness at the end of the day. I don't want anyone to look at me and be like, wow, that guy is so selfish and all his decisions are selfish, because I think that not being present is a selfish decision. And that's not what I want to be known for. So that was why, in addition to valuing the person that I was hanging out with, I recognized that there was growth needed. In the vein of writing things down, like I said, I have a lot of ideas and I become overwhelmed by them sometimes. So what I've had to do is this little 3-step process. Anything that I need to accomplish, I will write it down, I will prioritize it, and then I'll spread it out. Just because something needs to be done doesn't mean that it needs to be done right then. So I have to prioritize, okay, this is something that I have to get done in this certain time frame. This other thing is something I want to do, but not necessarily am I going to prioritize that. And spreading things out has been so helpful for me, because if I had things to do, I'd try to just do it all in one day on my day off. Chipping away at the things that need to be accomplished and creating a discipline of doing these things each day has been so helpful for me. Each week, I have a routine, and my routine has helped me so much. Okay, I need to get laundry done. I need to make sure that I have gas. I need to make sure that this video gets out for this other person. What thing needs to be done first? I need gas in my car, otherwise I can't go anywhere. Okay, let's go do that. Laundry needs to be done. I'm not going to have any clothes. Okay, let's start laundry, and then while we're doing laundry, maybe we'll do a video. Realizing you don't have to do everything all at once is helpful to not feel so anxious and weighed down by the responsibilities that we have. And that's what's worked for me. It might not work for you, but that's what's worked for me. Writing it down, prioritizing it, and spreading it out. Recently, I've been really pushing myself into doing more video stuff, content creation, all of that. And I recognized that it began to consume me, because every free moment that I had, I was doing that. And so whenever I was hanging out with someone, I was thinking about a video idea or the conversation we're having, like, whoa, this would be such a good video. And cool, yes, it could be, but I don't ever want my friends to feel like they're just a tool for content. I am not just a tool for content. All the content that I create should be just an extension of who I am. So with that, when I would get a video idea in the past, if I had the idea, I would go shoot that idea that day and put out the video either that day or the next day, because I had this belief in my mind that if I didn't immediately jump on an idea, then the ideas and my momentum would begin to slow down. And that's just not true. And I didn't recognize that I was thinking this way until I said it out loud to myself, and I said it out loud to people around me, and realized how silly that is. I can't live from this place of scarcity when it comes to ideas. And I can't use that as an excuse to not be present. That is such a wild way of thinking, but that was what I was believing, but not saying it out loud. And so that is why I like to stress communicating things out loud, not only to yourself, but to the people around you. Because sometimes we have interesting thought patterns that don't line up with reality. But until we say it out loud, we don't realize that. And so once I realized that, I decided, okay, 2 days a week, I'm shooting videos. 2 days a week, I'm editing videos. And that's all I'm going to do. If I only have 2 videos to edit, I'm spreading it out across 2 days. If I only have 2 videos to shoot, spreading it across 2 days. I needed to set aside time for that specifically and being fully present in that specifically, so that when I was hanging out with other people, I could also be fully present and just hang out with them and it not feel like I'm behind or I'm missing out. I'm creating a discipline for myself in that situation. I'm creating a discipline of not allowing my passion to run my life, because I'm really passionate about it. But I think that when we're passionate about things, sometimes in all the excitement, we can allow it to start to run our lives. And I don't think that's a healthy way to live either, because living life is the priority. Being in touch with myself is the priority, not making videos. Hanging out with people and having great connection with friends, that's the priority, not making content with them and from them. I just really want to stress that. And this is my recent experience. You know what it is that takes you out of the moment. You know what it is that robs you of being present. And I think that my challenge to you this week is just to ask yourself a few questions. Am I being present? What is taking me out of the moment? And what can I do better? 3 really simple questions, but they can be difficult if we answer them honestly. And I think that everyone in every part of life can stand to be a little bit more present. This being present is not a one and done solved thing. It's a continual process. It's really important to continue to check in with yourself. We're not masters of being present. Some people, it's their strength. Other people, it's their weakness. But I think consistently checking in with yourself. Am I being present? What is taking me out of being present? And how can I be better? Is really vital. And the really cool thing about living right now is we have the internet. And there are countless articles and resources that can help us to understand what tools we need that will help us specifically. That's what I did. I looked up things to understand how to be present. I had conversations with people that I trust on how they're present. And that's what helped me, because I took that information. But information without action is powerless. Just remember, behind the information, there needs to be action. We're not just accumulating information and having all this knowledge, but never doing anything about it. This is your life. These are your friends. These are your relationships. Is it a priority or is it not? Your actions are communicating the answer to that question. So I think it's important to bring action behind information. So if you did make it to the end, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your time and choosing to watch this. I'm going to give you 10 gold stars to add to your sticker collection. And I'm also told to tell you to like and subscribe. And I would like for you to comment. How have you been more present? What has worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? Let me know. Also, you may notice that we're in a different setting. The normal place that I film, it is way too rainy to travel to. So I decided just to stay home and film. So welcome to my couch, my new couch. Again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. And until next time,